It's good to see all of you, and I'm glad that you joined us today. I will be starting by talking about our curriculum here at Founders. So one of my favorite things, and one of the things that makes our school unique, is the depth and rigor of our curriculum. One of my favorite things about our curriculum is the way that we teach literacy through access literacy. We teach students to spell by teaching them phonograms or letter combinations that make certain sounds. And by learning these just 72 phonograms, they're able to spell almost any word in the English language. And you're going to hear a little bit more about that later. So not only do we break our words into parts, but we also teach students to analyze sentences in order to understand how language works. Students can begin identifying nouns in kindergarten, and by the time they start second grade, they're analyzing whole sentences. And in fourth grade, we begin to diagram those sentences. And that is through our well-ordered language program. We also have a very rich curriculum of classic literature that we read, such as we read books like Charlotte's Web, Little House on the Prairie, King Arthur, The Jungle Book, and Treasure Island, and many more. Also, each year in history, we spend the very first semester, we're learning about world history and ancient history. During the second semester, we learn about American history. And we don't do what typically happens in public schools of social studies, but we learn real history. Students learn dates and events that happened, and they have a great understanding of the world by the time that they leave here. One of the other things that we do at Founders is we use Singapore math to teach math. And we focus more on teaching for comprehension when we teach math, not just the rote memorization. One of the methods we use is bar modeling, which is one of my favorite things. It's very close to my heart. And I know that Ms. Keene is going to show you a little bit about that later, so I'll let her do that. But one thing I want you to know is being a classical school is about so much more than just the curriculum. So Ms. Sanderlin is going to say a little bit more now.
Good evening. A classical school is more than just a curriculum. It is primarily a culture that we have here that we forge as teachers, and then we offer it to our students. In other words, at Founders, there are no student cultures. Basically, we as teachers instill them in our students. There's only the culture for the teachers, and it's our privilege to our students to be invited into our classical culture. On the other hand, it's important to note that no child wants to be part of a culture that is suffocating, that is moralistic, or even enervating. One's desire to love, to learn, or just find joy in the daily work. As a result, is our responsibility, our priority as Founders staff to create a culture that is vibrant and joyful. We have a deep philosophical belief that our commitment is to our children and that we have access to good, the true, and the beautiful. While developing a relationship with our true, we focus on two aspects, and that's the mind and our heart of our children. We are intentional in everything that we do, especially what we introduce to our students. The heart never takes the place of the head, but it can and should obey it. This is a quote from C.S. Lewis that we here at Founders, we live up to. It still remains true that no justification of virtue will enable a man to be virtuous, by C.S. Lewis. Again, we at Founders have more than just curriculum. We are about our virtues, and we're glad that you guys are part of our family. And now we're going to pass it over to Ms. Jordan to introduce RICS, our curriculum.
Hello, Founders families. I'm Ms. Jordan, and I teach second grade, and I've been here since our inaugural year of 2015, and I've loved teaching here since we opened, and it's been great. And today, I'm going to tell you all about our literacy program. So we have Access Literacy, and it's for grades K through 3. It's an explicit phonics program that teaches kids specific tools to be able to spell our words. So the kids don't memorize words. They have a toolbox of what they're going to use to spell words. So they learn rules, they learn what suffixes and prefixes mean. They have the phonogram cards that we teach that they use to build those words. And with those tools, they're able to read well, they spell well, they write well. Okay, so today I'm going to be showing you guys a typical lesson that your kids would have in kinder through third. This will be more a second, third grade lesson. I am going to teach y'all a fourth grade word that fourth grade just had recently. So y'all are welcome to try to participate a little bit at home. Okay. Okay, so we always begin with our phonogram cards. So we're using as many of our senses as possible for the children to get this just ingrained in their brain so that they're able to access them automatically. That's our goal, that they can just pull these out of their memory quickly and apply these to their spelling. So we start our lessons with the phonogram cards. I'm going to do 3 with you guys. Okay, so the teacher will hold it up and the kids say it. So they see it, then they're going to say it, and then after we go through the cards, then they will write it. And when they're writing it, they're also feeling it as they see it. So they're using as many of the senses as they possibly can. Okay, so I'll hold it up and the students will say the sound. Together they'll say A, 2-letter A that we do not use at the end of English words. Why not? Because English words do not end in I. Sh, tall letter sh, used at the beginning of any syllable after the first one. And we explain what those rules mean, especially in the younger grades. They memorize that, but we talk about what that means. And basically what that means is words don't start with sh, tall letter sh. Okay, and then here's the third one. I, 3-letter I. Okay. And then after that, we will go into our spelling our words. So I'm going to do for sure 2 words with you guys. Okay. So the first word would be the first beginning of second grade word, and the word is light. The light is on in the classroom. Class, how many syllables are in the word light? And your students will figure it out. They use their chin. They could tap their chest. They could tap it out. And they'll put the answer in front of their chest. And then we'll ask again, okay, class, how many syllables are in the word light? And they'll all say 1. And the teacher is able to assess, are they understanding syllables by the number of fingers they put up. So yes, class, there is 1 syllable in the word light. Say the syllable with me, light. Okay, class, tell me what sound you hear. What do you hear in the word light? And they'll say it with me, and I'll hold my fingers up. Ul, I, t. We hear 3 sounds in the word light. I'm going to tell you which phonograms we're using in this spelling word. Okay, class, the phonograms are ul, I, 3-letter I, t. Okay, class, tell me which phonograms are we going to use? And then they will say the phonograms to me back. So they're saying it still. And then they'll say ul, I, 3-letter I, t. And then the teacher tells the students, please write that word now. And they'll write it on their paper. And they work really hard on saying the sounds as they write them. And as the students write them, the teacher's walking around monitoring them, checking their pencil grip, making sure they're forming the letters correctly, and that they're using the correct phonograms. Okay. After they write it on the paper, then we do it together on the board so the students can actually see, make sure they got the word correct, and they get to see it another time right then and there. So the class tells you this time what to write. So they'll tell me, Miss Jordan, write ul, and I'll write ul, I, and I'll ask them, which I? And they'll tell me I, 3-letter I. T. Class, what word do we have? We have light. And then we'll do the markings. They'll tell us, we mark the words. These are the things that the parents might not see at home, but we practice it in class to help them remember which phonograms we're using in the words. And they'll tell me, say, Miss Jordan, we underline I, 3-letter I. And we have a very punctual system, the way we do it, where they all say it together. So this would have been just 1 word. That's the word light. Okay, so I'm going to do a much harder word with you guys. And the word is lackadaisical. Okay, so I would encourage you parents at home to tell me how many syllables are in lackadaisical. So the class will be figuring it out, doing this. Okay, lackadaisical. The students were lackadaisical about doing their homework. Okay, class, how many syllables are in lackadaisical? 5, that's correct, class. 5 syllables. That's a long word, but we can spell it. You ready? Let's say the syllables. Lack-a-day-zi-col. Okay, class, for this word, you're going to think lack-a-day-zi-cow. Okay, and I will explain it. And so this word is so long, we're going to write a syllable at a time. Okay, the first syllable, class, is lack. Tell me what you hear. They'll say ol, a, k. That they hear 3 sounds. And then the teacher tells them what to write. In class, these are the phonograms you're going to use. Ol, a, all. K, 2-letter k, used only after a single vowel that says a, e, a. Class, write the first syllable, lack. Okay, and they'll write it on their papers. Ol, a, k, 2-letter k. Okay, they'll write that. So we have the lack, class, what are we going to think for the second syllable? We're going to think, what? A, lack a, okay? So this is just a. It's an open syllable a. Class, just write a, open syllable a. And they know, and since second grade, starting in second grade, that a, open syllable a, means a single vowel that leaves the syllable open. Lack a day. Okay, class, this syllable is d-a. It's a 2-letter A that we do not use at the end of English words. Okay, in class, what are you going to write? And they'll tell me, they write syllable break, d-a, 2-letter A that we do not use at the end of English words. Lack-a-day-zi. Okay, class, what sounds do you hear? Z-it. Okay, you're going to use s, I, e. Okay, class, what are you going to use? And they'll tell me s, I, e, and they'll write it, syllable break, s, I, e, lack-a-day-zi. Okay, last syllable. Okay, we hear lack-a-day-zi-col. Class, what are we going to think? Lack-a-day-zi-cow. What do you hear in that last syllable? K-a-ol. Okay, class, you're going to use k-a-ol. Okay, now class, if this is a, which k are we going to use? And they know the rule for this, and they'll tell you it's k-s, because they know a, o, and u go with k-s, and k goes with the other 2, which is e and I. So they'll tell me it's k-s-a-ol, and they'll write k-s-a-ol. Lackadaisical. Class, you did it. You wrote that 5-syllable word, lackadaisical. Okay, and then I'll go through the markings and they'll mark the words and I'll just show you for time. They use thinking caps when they're thinking something a sound. That's a schwa sound. So we put a thinking cap over it. Lackadaisical. And they're spelled lackadaisical. So we give them the tools they need. We keep practicing, and we practice many times throughout the day of these words. We practice the more difficult words more often than the easier words for them. They get lots of practice at school, and that's why we don't send the words home for them to memorize. Because they have the tools here, and we practice them here using their toolbox. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. We're going to have Mrs. St. Clair's going to come up and talk about our DEAR program now.
Oh, wonderful. Hi, everyone. I am Mrs. St. Clair. I teach first grade here at Founders. This is my 3rd year teaching here, and I absolutely love it. And I'm excited that I get to talk with you a little bit about the DEAR program. The DEAR program, oh, there it is. DEAR stands for Drop Everything and Read. And it really is a program to encourage your scholar to read daily. the reason is the best way to become a better reader is to read. In order to improve your vocabulary, one of the best things to do is to read. Reading is fun, and it is a wonderful foundation for your student to become, to develop the skills to become a lifelong learner. And that's really what education is all about. The way that it works is for every 20 minutes that your student reads, they get to complete a Dear Summary sheet. In kindergarten and first grade, that includes their name, the author's name, the date, their time that they read, and then they get to do a summary by drawing a picture of what happened in the story that they read for that 20 minutes. For the older grades, what they do is they write 2 or 3 sentences summary about what they read. They turn in that summary sheet to their teacher, and that earns them points. And for every 20 minutes and every Dear Log they turn in, they get one reward, one incentive point. And in increments of 20, they earn different rewards. And there's a picture here. You see that for the first 20, they earned this really cool little sticker. And it was really exciting when Mrs. Willett came in and presented them to some of my students just this last week. They were thrilled to have earned the sticker. And it goes from things from the sticker to a pennant to a keychain. And then the ultimate goal is this really shiny, cool lapel pin. And so that is just to encourage your student to continue on their journey of reading. The other thing is that your student, whenever they turn in their log in their classroom, their class is earning points. And I know that for first grade, it's been a pretty intense competition to earn the Dear flag. But every week, let me see if I can get it to pop up. Here we go. Every week, each section in each grade, whichever class has read the most or submitted the most Dear summaries, gets to display this flag, and I'm going to grab it to wave it around for you in just a second, outside of their classroom. Oops, I went too far. Hold on. Yay! And so this is the coveted flag that you want hanging outside of your classroom for an entire week, just taunting the other classes to read more. And isn't that what we want? We just want everybody to be so excited about reading and reading more. So if you catch your student reading, let them know, hey, fill out that Dear Log, because I know that's a problem that I have with my own child is he loves to read, but he doesn't fill out the Dear Logs. So have them fill out those Dear Logs so that way they can earn the points, they can earn the rewards, and they can earn as much as they can get out of this wonderful education here at Founders. Thanks.
Now, Ms. Keene is going to be talking with us next about bar modeling in Singapore math.
Hi, I wanted to come on first. Oops, I'm a little tall, sorry. I wanted to come on first just so that y'all can see my face and I can say hello. My name is Ms. Keene. I'm a 4th grade teacher here at Founders. Just like Ms. Jordan, this is my 5th year at Founders. I've been here since the beginning. And something that's really been incredible for me to teach is Singapore math. So I taught 2nd grade for a few years and now 4th grade for a few. So I've had kind of the benefit of seeing how Singapore math can really change the way that students understand math and understand the problems that they're doing. So I am going to go back behind the camera again. So I want to start off first of all by thinking about this idea of number sense, because something that Singapore math really focuses on is the idea of what a number actually is. So we don't just go through the steps of something, we actually think what is it that we're actually doing. So I want to start first of all by just looking at a number itself. And let's begin with the number 31. So when students first learn about a number, we have these digits that we're writing down, but we also want to think, what is the number 31 and what does that mean? And something that Singapore math allows students to do is they allow them to actually work with a number through something called manipulatives. So in a first grade classroom or a kindergarten classroom, students would actually be able to use these manipulatives, be able to pick these up and actually get a good idea of what this number means. As students get older, they'll begin to work with something called regrouping. So take, for example, this problem, 31 minus 8. We have 3 10s, we have 1 1. This is an idea that students have worked with since kindergarten through first grade as they begin to understand numbers. Now at the end of first grade, students will begin to learn what to do when we don't have enough and we have to do something called regrouping. So students would learn to regroup the 10s, and they would actually be able to physically do that with the manipulatives in front of them. So we're taking a 10, and we're trading it for 10 1s. Now my number is the same, right? I have 2 10s, which has a value of 20. I have 11 1s, but now students are able to actually take away 8 1s, and they can see what it actually means to regroup. So we'll change the problem itself to reflect the 2 10s and the 11 1s. And now we're able to take those 10 1s away. And so now students are able to see, I've taken away 8 1s, I'm left with 3. And we've left our 2 10s where they are, so our answer is 23. So students will really work with these manipulatives in the elementary as they start to learn how to understand these skills. Singapore doesn't focus so much on the rote steps, but really understanding what it is that we're doing. Something else that we do in the 4th grade is we start to work more with bar models. And so I want to show you a bar model that the 4th grade would do to show you how we utilize this idea of bar modeling. Okay, I'm going to read the problem, and then I want to give you all a chance to kind of think about how would you solve this as an adult that's gone through math before. Think about how we learned this math. So my problem is the ratio of the number of red pebbles to the number of blue pebbles to the number of green pebbles in a container is 2 to 3 to 5. There are 80 pebbles in the container. How many red pebbles are there? So I want you all to think just for a moment, how would you solve this problem? Well, in the 4th grade, this is actually a 4th grade problem, which when I first read the problem, I really couldn't believe it because this actually is a pre-algebraic problem. It's having students learn this idea of algebraic reasoning, which is really something important for them as they make their way through higher grade levels of math. So what we do when we think about a ratio is numbers compared to one another. So we're seeing the relationship between one number and another. And what we start with is something called a unit. So we guide students in being able to draw this model. Let's start with a unit. So if I look at red, I see that red has 2 compared to blue's 3 compared to green's 5. So let's start by drawing 2 units by the red pebbles. Well, if red has 2, I know that green has blue. So I'm going to draw the same units under blue. I'll draw 3 of them. My goal is to make them the same size. My 4th graders know that sometimes mine are a little bit different sizes, but that's our goal. And then I know that if I'm thinking about this unit, my green would then have 5 units. And remember, 5 units are the same, drawn in the same size. Now we're looking through the problem and we're seeing what other information we've been given. We know that there are 80 pebbles in the container in all. So we also utilize something called a bracket, and students will learn to figure out where are the brackets going on the problem, because we want to fill in as much information as we've been given, and then we'll start the problem solving portion. So I'll draw my bracket around the entire model, and I'm putting 80 on the outside. Okay, this is all the information that we've been given so far. So now we're going to start thinking about these units. Well, I want to figure out how much each unit is actually worth. I want to figure out what number goes inside each one. So given the information that I have, I want to start figuring out what is one unit itself worth. And so in fourth grade, we'll guide the students to kind of be able to develop this idea of problem solving. They begin to get really good at figuring out how to solve a problem just by looking at the bar model itself. So M is our portion for the model. Down below we have E, which is where we'll write our equations. So I know that 10 units equals 80 pebbles. I want to figure out how much one unit is worth. So then I would pause and I would ask the fourth graders their ideas of how we would figure out how much one unit is worth. And we might go through and figure out some of the ideas that students have. And hopefully, as we guide students there, they get an idea that if 80 is the total amount, and it's a bracket that's surrounding 10 equal units, that must mean that I'm taking my 80 and I'm dividing them up into 10 units. So we'll write that equation down below. I know that for 80 total, divided by 10 units, I'm left with 8. So now I have enough information to go ahead and start filling in more of the bar model. So I know that for these 10 units, I'm able to put 8 pebbles inside each unit. Our goal is to fill in numbers inside the bars themselves. Okay, so now something else that I want the students to think about. And normally we would kind of think about this at the beginning of the problem, but we want to think about what is the end goal. So what is it that they want us to actually figure out? And we have a space on our model here that we can actually write the solution sentence. So we'll write it and we'll keep a space for when we actually figure out what the answer would be. So again, my word problem says, how many red pebbles are there? So we'll formulate that question into a statement. And I'll leave a space for my answer when I get to it. So there are blank red pebbles. So now we'll direct students back up to the bar model again. I want to figure out how many red pebbles there are. So I'll put a bracket around red. What I'm looking for is the number of red. And then I'll ask students, how is it that I'm able to figure out how many red there are? I might have a student raise their hand and say, well, I can add 8 plus 8. Another student might raise their hand and say, well, repeated addition is the same as multiplication. And so we'll go ahead and write our next equation down below it. So for 2 units, each unit contains 8. So 8 times 2 units would be 16 pebbles in total. And so I'm able to fill in not only the bar model, but the solution sentence down at the bottom as well. Oftentimes when we have more difficult problems, there's a space on this template that we use that allows students to go through and do their work. And so it's a really linear way of students to go through the steps to be able to make sure that they've not only worked through the work, but also check their answers. So we'll guide students in checking their work as well. I want to go back and do pretty much everything in reverse. I'm going to start from the end and work my way back up to the beginning. and I will be able to check and see that I've done everything correctly. So I ended with 16 pebbles. I said that 16 pebbles total was 8 pebbles. And how many units? So 8 times 2. 8 times 2 units. Okay, and I can check that off because I'm able to check my work and I see that that one is correct. Now I've said that 8 pebbles go inside each box. Let me check and make sure that that was correct. So we said 8 pebbles times 10 units, and hopefully if I did my math correctly, if I did my multiplication correctly, I will end up with those 80 pebbles that I began with. So again, this is a really clear way for students to be able to work through a problem, work through the steps of problem solving. And Singapore Math is great in my opinion because it allows students to really see what they're doing. Oftentimes when we do word problems, we underline the information and we figure out what kind of problem it is, what kind of, are we adding, are we subtracting? But this actually allows students to see it. So those kids that are really visual, which is actually a lot of students, they're very visual learners. It allows them to be able to see the problem physically, to then be able to find the steps to solve. So thank you so much, parents, excuse me, and let me know if you do have any questions.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's me, Mr. Ortiz. I'm excited to be here, and I can't wait to talk about this next presentation, which is study skills. One of the questions that parents ask me often when they're looking at our school is, Mr. Ortiz, I've heard that your curriculum is very rigorous. Will my students be able to adapt? Will my students be able to meet the expectations, especially if they're coming from a school where there wasn't a lot of homework, where the expectations were very low? I like to comfort our parents and remind them that we are not a sink or swim school. We do offer supports to our students. And the presentation I'm about to give you is to show you how we have started since last year, but more so this year officially, implementing a program that we call the Study Skills Program to help all of our students in the classroom be successful at Founders Classical Academy. Now, I want to just quickly say before I jump into the presentation that I have seen over the course of many years leading schools that when students meet at least 80% of the skills that I'm about to show you, if they do their best to at least do 80% of what I'm about to present, they become solid B plus students. Now, if you want to become an A student, there's a little extra that they need to do, and I'll just cover that in just a moment as well. But it should be good news to everyone if they could commit to 80%, about 80% of what I'm about to present, then it should be very easy for them to be solid B or B plus students. So let's begin there. What are the study skills? So number one, the study skills that we have implemented this year that is now going to become a staple of our school is really based on this one simple principle, which is organization. 80% of a student struggle involve poor organization. What we've seen in working with students for several years is students that don't have a good organization. What happens is they lose their homework, which was very important for their grade, or they lose their notes, or they can't find their notes, or their notes are not well done. So when the date of the quiz or the exam comes, they're not prepared. Once again, it all boils down to organization. So I'm going to say this once again, and it's a very strong, broad, categorical statement. If our students can really polish themselves on the side of organization, that alone should help them become very good, solid B and B plus students. If they want to be A students, then there's a little extra that they need to do, which is that extra 20%, and that is developing a habit of reviewing their content daily. That doesn't have to be more than 15 to 20 minutes a night of review. And we'll talk about how we do that. So I'd like to start first with what the school does to help. And then by the end of this presentation, I want to go over how our parents can continue what the school does in order to help the students at home. Together, we're going to be able to help our students be extremely successful here at Founders Classical Academy. So we have implemented 6 things here on campus to help our students. And I'm going to go quickly through those 6 things, and then I'm going to go in depth into each one a little more. Number 1, we have implemented something called color-coded folders or color-coded notebooks. Number 2, name and date requirements. And I'm going to explain that in just a moment. Number 3, Cornell Notes. Number 4, planners. And a lot of you are already familiar with planners. We've been doing those since the beginning, since we founded Founders here in Schertz. Number 5, locker organization for our secondary school students or 6th graders who are transitioning into the middle school. And number 6, mnemonic devices. Okay, so let's look at the first one, color-coded folders or notebooks. So once again, what we have noticed over the course of many years is that students either lose their homework, lose their packets, lose the materials that they need in order to study and prepare for their tests. So what our teachers do starting in the 3rd grade is that they have matched every subject to a color. So what does this look like? What does this mean? Well, it means that in math, say for example, if my color is green, then I should have a green notebook that is only for math or a green folder that only applies to math. This way, all the content and all the information that involves math, all the homework that involves math, any handouts or anything that is going to go towards improving my math skills will be centralized in the same place. Now, we do that as a school, our teachers, everyone in concert to make sure that the student develops the habit of organizing themselves in this way. For our older students who prefer, and this again only applies for our secondary school students who would prefer to use binders as opposed to notebooks, we do have other options such as dividers that they can use in their binders. But once again, it's the same idea, 3rd grade all the way through 12th grade. So that by the time they get to college, through sheer practice of doing this for several years, they will get to college and realize that they have developed the skill of organizing all of their things and centralizing it in the same place so that it's accessible. And again, that's the key. This organization is not for its own sake. This organization is so that the content that they need to learn for the test or quiz is easily accessible. Okay, number 2. Name and date requirements. So this is another thing that we ask our students to do. And the reason it's so important is because once they enter the secondary school, so they start in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, the teachers will tell the students explicitly to study for a specific date range. Once again, one of the biggest challenges that our students show us is that they'll take notes in their yellow notebook, for example, for math class. And then they'll go to their science class and they'll put their notes in the same yellow folder. And then they'll go to their history class and they'll put their notes in the same yellow folder or yellow notebook. So what happens, the overall effect of that is that by the end of the day, they've had all their notes mixed in the same notebook. Now, try to imagine that happening every day for 2 or 3 months. And then they're just switching and changing notebooks as that time goes along. Well, by the time of the test, when the teacher says, I need you to study for this unit, or I need you to study for this date range, their notes have been spread out into so many notebooks and so many papers that it is almost impossible for them to be able to study in a way that is conducive to being successful. So what a child feels, and I remember this clearly myself, is just terror at the idea of having to study because I don't have the materials that I need easily accessible to me. It meant to me as a student when I was young that I had to go back to the actual textbook and try to cram everything the last day or the day before the test. So once again, that wasn't a successful way of studying. I wish I had had the system, and I wish my teachers had taught me this way, which was centralizing it all my math in one color, all my science in a different color, all my history in a different color, and then again enforcing the date rule, which is making sure that I always have the date and that my notes fit in one single page for that day, and I can go back and study that again every night before going to bed, which is one of the things that we do with this next part, which is Cornell Notes. Now, Cornell Notes is a system of taking notes, and this is a universal expectation of all of our teachers and students starting in 3rd grade through 12th grade. We are teaching our students not just to take notes, but how to take notes in a way that is conducive, once again, to learning easily and to access the information in a way that is easier. When you look at a child's notebook, it can tell you a lot of their study habits and why they're struggling at school. A lot of notebooks, if you've perused several of these over several years, you'll see notes scrambled all over the page, making it very difficult to understand what concept followed the previous concept, and is it logically coherent? Where can I find the information that my teacher wants me to study? Maybe it's there, maybe it's not there. At Founders, we are very explicit about what goes in the notebook, and only the content that needs to be studied for the test goes in the notebook. Notice that Cornell Notes also emphasizes the date, so just as part of the note program that we have, the date is essential. And the other thing I want to point out, this is very important. For our students who want to do the extra mile and become solid A students, there's a section which is summarize your information here. This part is perhaps one of the most important to the Cornell Notes. It requires of every single one of our students to put in their own words what it was that the teacher just taught. Several teachers will assign this as homework. Several teachers will do it in the classroom. In the secondary school, it is more likely, and it becomes a practice, that it be assigned as homework. So that's the section that I recommend our students go over every night, between 10 and 15 minutes a night so that they can cover all their subjects and just review what it was that they covered that day in science, for example. Doing that every night for 10-15 minutes before going to bed is going to be a huge improvement over trying to cram the day before the exam. The day before the exam, the student is going to feel much more prepared because they have reinforced the concepts that the teacher has taught every day by just reviewing it for 15 minutes. Once again, the summary is about a paragraph long. It's not a very long thing. It doesn't take a lot of effort or time for the student to do. So that's Cornell Notes, and it is a requirement. Another thing that is a universal expectation for all of our students starting in 3rd grade is planners. And a lot of you are familiar with the planner system. Once again, the idea behind it is organization. So we're trying to teach our students now so that when they get to college and beyond, they have developed the habit of keeping the essential information centralized and organized in a single place so that it's easily accessible. So once again, easy, organized, and easily accessible. So the planners are something that our teachers will actually take the time out of the day after every single one of their subjects or at the end of the day to go over with their students and say, all right, everyone pull out their planners now. We are going to write down the homework for tomorrow. And that way, we're not just putting it on the students' shoulders, but we are adding that extra support so that the students, with the prompting of the teacher, will start going through the motions and through practice, develop the habit of writing down the homework for the next day or the day after that, sometimes a week in advance, to help the students just have it all in the same place is a big step to helping them succeed. Number 5, locker organization really only applies to our secondary school and our 6th graders who've already been assigned lockers and are transitioning from the grammar school into the secondary school. So we have scheduled for ourselves, our teachers have a calendar now, and I'm very excited about this, where they're going to take their classroom out into the lockers at certain points in the year. and they're going to go through their lockers and organize it to make sure that they're maintaining their lockers in an organized fashion. What happens is if we don't do this, and if we don't have the parental support at home to make sure that the lockers are staying organized, is a lot of things that go in there never come back. A lot of things that go in there never come back alive, ladies and gentlemen. So it can be a very scary experience going through a locker that hasn't been organized for a full year. Homework is going to be found in there that was assigned 3 months ago. Essays, handouts, everything that goes in, once again, gets lost for the simple reason that it isn't organized. So we love to tell our parents, please go out to Walmart or Target and find these very nice little dividers or drawers that the students can use to put in their lockers to keep everything neatly divided and organized. Textbooks on one drawer, materials in another one, a box for homework or handouts in the other, and that way our students can go into their lockers in and out very easily and not have to worry about being late to class or of losing their homework or an essay that will severely hurt their grade if they have lost. So locker organization, once again, ladies and gentlemen, our teachers are including that support now in prompting and guiding our students through that. Okay. And our last one is mnemonic devices. So we have done this in the past, but we have a renewed effort and interest in making sure that we are encouraging our students to use flashcards, that they're reviewing their notes nightly for 15 minutes, and chants. Our students learn very well when it comes to using song as part of their learning. So now let's look at how our parents can help. And this is very important because a lot of this will then translate to the home. And if in the home there's not a system of support, then a lot of it is really just going to fall to the side. And it's not really going to change the habit of our students. So the home environment is extremely important in making sure that our students are successful. And there are really only three things that we ask our parents to do for our students to be successful at Founders. Number one, as you can see on the picture, a student must have a dedicated, to the side place where they can study. That can be a desk of any size, a small desk, a large desk, as long as it's dedicated specifically for studying, that's all that matters. Things that are not dedicated place for studying are beds, sofas, lounging chairs. Those are not dedicated, especially if they're located in the living room where the TV is on or where the siblings are being loud and rambunctious. So once again, it needs to be dedicated. It needs to be set aside so that the student can focus and be completely devoted to what they're trying to learn. So number two, that also means no distractions. Now, one of the biggest challenges for a lot of our students, even our A students, is distractions. With all the technology that we have today, it's very easy for distractions to creep in and take part of the mind away from the material that is before our students. So there are a couple of things that should be completely banned from the study area or from the desk while the student is studying. Number one is TV. Now, I've had arguments with all of my high schoolers over this, and there's absolutely not a single scientific, researched, or essay or study that could show and prove that a student performs better while they study watching TV. In fact, it's the opposite, ladies and gentlemen. So it is very important. It doesn't matter that the volume is muted. The mind will be distracted and will not be able to retain what it's trying to study or learn if there is a TV on. So that TV must be off. Okay. Number two, no cell phones. And this might be surprising to a lot of our parents, but cell phones have become a part of the life of a lot of our students, even as young as second grade. So once again, cell phones are one of the biggest distractors today. A student will be reading a book for 2 minutes, and then they'll get distracted texting for the next 3 or 5 minutes, and they'll go back and forth, That disjointed and broken up form of studying is once again not conducive to retaining information and learning it for the long term. It might remain in short-term memory for about 5 to 7 minutes, and the student might feel satisfied that they've actually covered it. They could check it off their list, but next day it's been forgotten, and then it becomes more toilsome for the student to try to remember everything for the past 3 weeks that they were not able to retain because their mind was split between their book and their cell phone or TV. No lying in bed. This is a big one. A lot of my students love to do this. They have their own rooms now. They're older perhaps, so they go into the rooms and they tell their parents they're studying and they're laying in bed while they're working on their homework. Now, every study that has been done on this subject shows that the human body and the human mind, once it's lying down, it will automatically interpret that as time to sleep. So although the mind is awake and the body is awake, the mind is telling that person it's time to sleep, not time to study. So it doesn't matter if you've read 25 lines of Dante or you've read the entire Summa of Thomas Aquinas while in bed, your mind is not as active as it could be if it were sitting in the right posture at a desk that is dedicated for studying. Now, we strongly recommend that they go to the same place to study every day because that teaches the mind, and then the mind tells the body it's time to study. So that's very important, ladies and gentlemen, that students are not lying in bed. And our last one is no music with lyrics. Music with lyrics, ladies and gentlemen, also splits the mind or distracts it from being able to be devoted to the things that are before the student. The last skill that we ask our parents to do, the last thing we ask our parents to do to support their students is to have some form of filing system at home. Now, why do we do this? Well, because there are so many notes, so many handouts that are given over the course of the year that eventually we can't fit them in one folder anymore. So if the student is going to need to go back and study this content, then a filing system is essential to have at home where they can organize everything, once again, by date. That way our students can go back, look for the dated notes or handout, study it, and be ready for their test and quiz. A lot of parents put those in their kitchen cabinets, but whatever works for you, it can be a filing box, it could be a cabinet, it can be a drawer, as long as our students have access to organized information that is easily accessible, they will be, once again, solid B students. And that is, again, a promise, ladies and gentlemen, because it has been time tested and results tested for many, many years. So with that, I conclude. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to help you through this adventure with your child on how to get organized and how to develop the daily habit of summarizing the content that they've learned for 15 minutes every night. Thank you very much.
Hello, parents. I am Mrs. Dement, and I have been at the school since this will be my 4th year teaching, and I'm going to talk to you about our behavior program or our discipline program right now. Now, a lot of things that parents ask is, well, how is this different from regular public school? And just like Miss Jordan stood up here and talked about how we don't have the students memorize words just to memorize, or Miss Keene talked about that we don't talk about just rote memorization. We don't want students to just follow rules for the sake of following rules. Really what we want to focus on is developing character or building character, and ultimately to just have a joy for doing what is right because it is right. And we do that through the virtues. Okay, so we have these virtues that we talk about. We talk about the 5 cardinal virtues. They are justice, prudence, which is wisdom, charity, temperance, which is self-control, and fortitude, which is courage. So these virtues are brought into the language of instruction and to the language of behavior as well. We do this in 2 different ways. We have incentives and we have cause and effect. For incentives, it can be individual incentives or group incentives. And I know these are going to be talked about in a little bit, but we have shields. So we have a temperance shield, that's going to be talked about later, and a Charity Shield, and a Poetry Shield. And each one of these are incentives based on whole class behavior. Certain teachers also have their individual classroom things. For instance, right now I have my students in columns, but each column is a family and they have to strive together and work together as a family. And I have a tally system on my board. So I'll give each family tally marks throughout the day, depending on how their behavior is. If a student clips up to blue on the clip chart, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, they'll get a blue point for their family as well. So different different classroom teachers have different incentives within their classroom. The other way that we approach behavior is a cause and effect, and that is where we use the behavior chart. So in lower school, we have a behavior chart, and every student starts on green every day, regardless of what yesterday was like. Every student starts on green. If they do something above and beyond that is not just following the rules, but really above and beyond and showing virtue, they can clip up to blue. If we've given them a warning or two and they're still not following directions, then we're going to have them think about it. We're going to clip down to think about it. And this just, we want them to realize, oh wait, there's something that I am still doing wrong, even though I've been told, and I just need to think about it for a little bit. It can be a little bit of time out of recess. If that student still continues to do the same behavior, or if there's other repeated behaviors, then they're going to clip down to orange, which is parent contact. And seconded up, we have something called a time to think sheet that the student has to fill out why they're on orange. The student has to sign it, the teacher signs it, they take it home to the parent, and the parent signs it. That's just a time that we just want you to speak to your child about what happened today, how can we fix that behavior. And then if a child gets on red, they go to the office. At that point, administration is going to speak to the child, and administration will probably call the parent as well. What we want you to understand is that clip chart is not punitive. We want it to be restorative. So whether it's a quick email home or a time to think, or even if administration is calling you, it's there so that we can work together with you and your child to figure out a solution to this, because we want it to be restorative. We want to get back to those virtues, and how can we help your child display those virtues on a daily basis. So eventually what we want for the lower school is to have those students transition to upper school with these virtues ingrained inside of them, so that they already have a joy for following the rules, and can translate that to upper school. And upper school, those cause and effect situations change. They don't have a clip chart, they have other things. But ultimately, as a school, we want to be able to send our students out into society so that they can be civic members of society who love life and who can live out those virtues that were instilled to them. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to talk about our Arete Shields program. Arete is our Greek word that means excellence of any kind. So we have our class incentives. We have our Charity Shield that you will see, and we also have our Poesis Shield and Temperance Shield. First, we're going to discuss our Caritas Shield. Okay, our Caritas Shield means Charity Shield. This shield is awarded to each section of every grade level. They will compete for this shield, and it's awarded weekly as a class. The students who earn the highest number of gold coins. The coins basically are given to by the PE teachers, the fine art teachers, and the grade level apprentice. So the teachers in the instructional aides in the classroom. Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Willow. Each of the teachers will be given exactly 1 coin each day to give to one class based on the observation of the classroom for that particular day. And some standards that apply for this award would be that they have to follow directives the first time. Secondly, they have to have a great attitude when following directions. And lastly, going over and beyond to help the teacher or another student. And the students get really excited about getting a coin at the end of the day, and always excited to see who will get the coin. Next will be our Poesis Shield. We started this shield for this year, and the Poesis Shield is basically another grade level section competition. The Poesis Shield is awarded monthly to the class that earns the highest number of points for public recitation. So either myself, Ms. Willett, or Mr. Ortiz will get an invite to go watch a classroom to do a public recitation. And those recitations are based on a rubric that includes 5 categories. And the category would be memorization, class participation as a whole, expression, posture, clarity of speaking. So they total class could get 5 points. So either you get a point for the actual expectation, or you don't get any points. So the maximum points that a class could score for a public recitation will be 5 points. And we have had some great poems this year. The students are doing an amazing job. And next will be our Temperance Shield. Our Temperance Shield is awarded daily also, and each grade level section will compete for a Temperance Shield, and it's awarded based on behavior in the cafeteria. And this will be given by Ms. Moulton, which is the CNP, or the teachers that are actually in the lunchroom for that particular time. And the students get really excited. We only have one class this year so far to have all 3 shields outside the door. And that was very exciting moment where we had to go take a picture for that class. But that's all I have for our Arete program. And Ms. Willett will come up to finish.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Sanderlin. All right, so today, the last thing I'm going to talk to you about today is our Bona Vitae program. This is a brand new program that we're doing this year, and the purpose of this is to help our students with social skills. We teach our students virtue each day when we talk about the 5 virtues, as Mrs. Dement referred to. And but now we want to give them some more practical instruction on how to do that. And so this is a virtue-based social skills coaching program. We will once per month, we'll take a very short class period, and the teacher will go through a social skills lesson that's specific to that group of kids that we are reaching to them to try to help them in their social interactions with their peers. And the purpose of this, we want to help our students have peace and unity with their friends, in their relationships. This way, we're able to spend more time on the academics and less on the drama that can be created whenever students are having difficulty getting along with their peers. We want to create healthy and intentional relationships. And this allows them to be more virtuous and socially adept individuals. So one other thing that we're doing also is our charity chair. And this is a brand new thing we're doing. For some of our younger grades, we found that 4th grade and above is a little bit old to do this, but we're implementing this for the younger kids in our grade, that if we have a student who doesn't have a friend to sit with at recess, they can go to play with at recess. They can go sit at the charity chair. And we're encouraging our students to look to see if they can find a classmate that needs a friend to play with at recess time. And we don't want our students to feel alone or lonely or sad. We want to be in unity with one another and to reach out to one another in this way. So that's one of our new things that we're implementing, and we're talking to our kids about showing charity to those who don't have a friend to play with. And that is the end of my presentation for today, we want to, social skills is really important for success in our lifetime. And so we want to give our students the skills that they need to be able to do that. So that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us for this curriculum night. We will be having a Q&A, a question and answer time with Mr. Ortiz. So there is a second invitation that you should have received. And so we look forward to seeing you there. So have a great day. And if you have any questions, please join our question and answer time in just a moment. Thank you.